Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to pick up stitches along the heel flap of my Swift gift socks. This is a technique that is also used in my Sporty Shorty sock pattern. I'm demonstrating on the Swift gift socks because they are a DK weight sock pattern, and so I thought that would be easier to be able to see the stitches. So I have knit the cuff of the sock, the leg, the heel flap, and heel turn. I've cut my coordinating color that I used for the heel flap and heel turn, and I'm ready to begin using the main yarn again and pick up the stitches along the heel flap. So I'm knitting this magic loop, so the front of the foot stitches are on the cord, and I've got my heel stitches from my heel turn here on the side. I'm going to be using my left hand needle to pick up stitches along the left hand side of the heel flap. And because this pattern uses a double gusset heel, I'm going to be decreasing across the underneath the foot within this heel turn stitches at first. So I'm going to actually go ahead and place a ring marker on my left hand needle before I start picking up these stitches, because the heel flap stitches on the left side, the heel turn, and the heel flap stitches on the right side of the sock are all going to be my sole stitches, where I'm going to be decreasing out those additional stitches. So to begin picking up, trying to get this needle out of the way so you can see really well. So I'm going to pick up along this side, left-hand side of the heel flap first. My designs call for you to keep the first and last 3 stitches in garter stitch. The reason for this is to make picking up your stitches super easy. This is a tip that I learned from my friend Christy, who is Turtle Girl Designs. She's also the mastermind behind the double gusset heel, which I use in my patterns as well, because it creates a really great fitting heel. So these garter stitches make it easy to pick up because there's literally, you pick up one of each of these bumps all the way up your sock, and then you have all of your stitches picked up. So I like to use this very first garter bump here. So I'm picking up from the bottom. It's going to be kind of a frowny face pick up here. Let me make sure I'm in frame good. And I'm going to take my left hand needle and slide it under each of these bumps, picking up 1 stitch for each bump. So I'm just sliding my needle right through that line, first line of garter bumps, and picking them up all the way up the side of the sock, on the side of the heel flap. So now you can see I have got stitches on my needles to pick up this heel flap. Makes this garter stitch trick is awesome, and I love it, and I use it for all of my socks that I knit with a heel flap. So now we are at the join of the front top of foot stitches and the heel flap stitches, and I always pick up an additional 2 stitches here to make sure that I don't have a gap here. So the first stitch that I pick up is going to be in this first row of stitches that was used for the heel flap. So, and this is the stitch 2, this row of stitches too, that the ridge of garter bumps that I went up, or the row of garter bumps that I went up, kind of goes right into this row of stitches. So what I like to do is pull my coordinating color tail out of the way. I'm going to go down in through this first stitch and up through the next stitch, and that is picking up the bar from inside that stitch. And then the other stitch that I pick up is here in between, with these bars in between the top of foot stitches and heel flap stitches. And I don't like to pick up the very top bar, I pick up the next one. So I'm just going to go down under that bar and pick that up. And so now I have a stitch for each of the garter bumps going all the way up a row and then, or up a column of garter bumps, and then I have an additional 2 stitches picked up in the corner. So now I am going to begin knitting with my right hand needle, knit these stitches down to the heel turn. So these first 2 additional stitches that I picked up are presenting, they're on my needle backwards. So and I actually want to knit these 2 stitches, or I want to knit this first stitch twisted. So I'm going to knit through the front of that one as it's presenting as twisted on my needle already. This second stitch I will not knit twisted. I will knit through the back loop because it's presenting as twisted on my needle. And then I'm going to just knit these stitches as they appear all the way down the left-hand side of my heel flap down to my heel turn. And picking up in this first garter bump really helps to ensure that you don't have loose stitches at the pickup. And if you drop one, it's super easy to just slide your needle back under there and grab it back. I think it's a lot easier than the way I used to do it, where I used to just kind of stab my needle through and pick up a stitch, you know, for each row, try to anyway, and it just never came out exactly right. So I have completed the pickup and knit down the left-hand side of the gusset. So now I'm going to continue knitting, and I'm going to get this back here so I can knit my heel turn stitches. And I already put my marker on before the pickup. So I'm just going to slide that marker, and I'm going to work across these heel turn stitches. So the pickup for the gusset and the heel turn stitches and the pickup for the right gusset are all going to be considered my sole stitches for the time being, and in which I'll decrease out the additional gusset stitches to get back down to my original number of stitches, which this is the size medium sock, so it's 52 stitches that I'll be getting back down. Not that that matters right now. Okay, so I have worked across my heel turn stitches, and I am ready to pick up stitches for the right hand gusset. So I'm just kind of move that guy out of the way. So I am going to pick up, for the right, I'm going to pick up from the top down to the heel turn using my left hand needle. So I need to start with the stitches in the additional stitches. So I'm going to go in between the first top of foot stitch and the first sole stitch or heel flap stitch, and I'm going to pick up that second, not the very first one, but the second one here. And then I am going to go in through the second stitch here at the top of the row of purl bump or garter bumps I'll be picking up, and I'm going to pick up that stitch there, and then I'm going to work my way down, picking up, sliding my needle under these garter bumps. This is the same row of bumps that I'm picking up from the other side. This way I'm picking them up from the top though, rather than coming up from the bottom. So now I have those 2 additional stitches, as well as a stitch for each of the garter bumps all the way down. And I am going to begin working those stitches. I first need to place a ring marker to mark the heel turn stitch so I can do my gusset decreases within there. So I am going to begin working these stitches as they present on the needle, and I'm just going to knit all the way up to those 2 extra stitches, and the heel kind of gets scrunched up on that needle a little bit. You can kind of straighten it out if it's getting in your way. So I just knit each of these all the way up to those 2 extra ones. Now, the first extra one, I do not want to twist. So I'm going to knit it. And it is not presenting as twisted because we picked it up from the other direction this time. So I'm just going to knit that as it presents. The second stitch that I picked up in the middle here, I do want to twist, and it's presenting as not twisted, so I will knit that one through the back loop to close up that gap. And then we're done. So let me move these onto the cord so you can see what we have completed here. So we have all of the stitches picked up along the gusset on each side, along the heel flap on each side, and we've picked up an additional 2 stitches on each end to make sure that we don't have any gaps. So you can see it's very neat and tidy, no wonky stitches at all, and that is why I love having a few garter stitches at the edge of a heel flap to make picking up so much easier. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you, and I hope you enjoy knitting some socks. Happy knitting!